December 19, 2025. Story 1. The Pentagon killed 5 more people in boat strikes, bringing the death toll over 100 since September. No evidence of drugs was provided. UN leaders and Latin American nations are calling for an end to the extrajudicial killings. Mexico's president reiterated non-intervention, self-determination, and peaceful resolution of controversies. Takeaway. When the UN and regional powers publicly call strikes extrajudicial killings, that's the international legal framing being established. This matters for future accountability proceedings, even if none are imminent. Story 2. The Brown University shooter was found dead in a New Hampshire storage unit, self-inflicted gunshot. Claudio Neves Valente, 48, a Portuguese national, attended Brown in 2000 to 2001. He's also suspected of killing MIT professor Nuno Loureiro, who attended the same Portuguese university where Neves Valente was a teaching assistant in the 1990s. A campus custodian's tips helped narrow the search. DHS announced it's suspending the diversity visa lottery program. Neves Valente received a green card through it in 2017. Takeaway. Policy changes attached to tragedies move fast. The visa lottery suspension uses this case as justification, regardless of whether the program was actually the relevant factor. Watch for pattern. Crisis becomes policy vehicle. Story 3. Israeli airstrikes killed 4 Palestinians east of Khan Yunis in the past 24 hours. A child died triggering unexploded Israeli ordnance in Nuseirat. A 29-day-old baby died of hypothermia at Nasser Hospital, the latest to freeze as Israel blocks tent shipments. Doctors Without Borders said, "They say the war has ended but people are still fighting for their lives." Gaza officials say Israel has violated the ceasefire more than 800 times. Takeaway. 800 violations is not a ceasefire being tested, it's a ceasefire in name only. The number itself is the story. Story 4. Trump's envoy is hosting talks in Miami with Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey on the next ceasefire phase. Middle East I reported the US, Israel, and UAE discussed using Gaza's offshore natural gas profits to pay for reconstruction. The administration announced new sanctions on International Criminal Court staff over the Israeli war crimes probe. Takeaway. Sanctioning the court investigating war crimes tells you which side of accountability the US is positioning on. The gas profit discussion tells you what reconstruction might actually be about. Story 5. 6 Palestine action prisoners in the UK are on hunger strike, some over 40 days. More than 800 healthcare professionals warned they're at risk of dying without proper medical attention. One prisoner's heart is giving in, pulse slowing, losing half a kilogram daily. Takeaway. Hunger strikes that reach medical crisis force decisions. The next few days determine whether the UK allows preventable deaths of political prisoners. Story 6. Today is the deadline for the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. House Democrats released more photos showing Epstein with Woody Allen, Steve Bannon, David Brooks, Noam Chomsky, and Bill Gates. Some photos show Lolita quotes written on a woman's body. CNN reported DOJ was racing to redact thousands of pages. Takeaway. What gets released today versus what gets redacted versus what gets delayed. Compare all three to the legal requirement. The redaction choices are the story. Story 7. Gothamist reports ICE entered private areas of NYC shelters or obtained resident information without judicial warrants at least 5 times this year, despite sanctuary city laws. Takeaway. Sanctuary policies are only as strong as their enforcement. If you work in shelters or similar spaces, know that legal protections aren't automatically honored. Document violations. Story 8. Human Rights Watch called for Congress to investigate ICE brutality, writing that masked unidentified agents roaming communities and apprehending people without identifying themselves erodes trust in the rule of law. Story 9. A Wisconsin jury convicted Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Duggan of obstructing federal agents, acquitting her of a misdemeanor. She helped an undocumented immigrant leave her courtroom in April to avoid arrest by agents in the hallway. Takeaway. Judges protecting people in their courtrooms now face federal prosecution. That's a jurisdiction message to the entire judiciary. Story 10. The administration announced rules cutting Medicare and Medicaid funding to hospitals offering gender-affirming care to anyone under 18. These programs cover nearly half of all hospital spending. Takeaway. This uses funding leverage to force compliance even in states with protective laws. If you're a family seeking care or a provider offering it, the financial pressure on hospitals will affect access regardless of state policy. Story 11. Trump signed an order to reclassify cannabis as Schedule 3, allowing FDA to study medicinal uses. During the signing, he struggled to stay awake, the latest in a series of public events where he appeared to fall asleep. A Congress member noted that Leqembi, an Alzheimer's drug, is administered through hand infusion, can cause brain swelling, requires regular MRIs, and causes tiredness. Source note: health speculation remains speculation without disclosure. Takeaway: the cannabis reclassification is substantive policy change. The health observations are pattern documentation. Story 12. Trump redecorated the White House with a presidential walk of fame featuring bronze plaques in social media post style. Biden's reads: Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history. Obama's calls him one of the most divisive figures in history. Reagan says he was a fan of Trump before Trump's historic run. Trump's claims he ended 8 wars. Takeaway: physical alterations to institutions are harder to reverse than policy. The style: social media post in bronze, tells you the intended permanence. Story 13. Trump said the White House ballroom could cost $400 million, double his earlier claim. The administration argued construction is a matter of national security. Takeaway: national security framing removes normal oversight. Watch for this justification expanding to other projects. Story 14. The Kennedy Center Board, handpicked by Trump in February, voted to rename the facility the Donald J. Trump and John F. Kennedy Memorial Center. Democrats say any name change requires an act of Congress. Takeaway: the legal challenge is coming. But the renaming happened through board capture, the same mechanism used elsewhere. The template is visible. Story 15. Trump media announced a $6 billion merger with TAE Technologies, a nuclear fusion company. This follows Trump's order barring states from regulating AI and data centers. Takeaway: the president's family company merging with an energy company while the president signs orders benefiting that energy sector as the conflict of interest operating openly. That's the system now. Story 16. Bernie Sanders is pushing for a moratorium on AI data center construction, saying it would give democracy a chance to catch up with transformative changes. Takeaway: moratorium efforts are the counter pressure. Whether they gain traction tells you whether any check on this build out exists. Story 17. Protests erupted across Bangladesh after activist Sharif Osman Hadi died from last week's shooting. He was a leader in the uprising that ousted the former prime minister and an outspoken critic of India's Modi. Police and paramilitary deployed to cities. Takeaway: assassinations of movement leaders often trigger escalation. Bangladesh's trajectory in the coming weeks will show whether the movement survives his death or fractures. That's December 19th.